The weapon system in Fallout 4 has got to be one of the best parts of the game. It was so well thought out, it's so versatile, it's just a lot of fun to modify and use weapons. But I have to admit, some of the textures of these weapons leave a lot to be desired. This is partially due to Bethesda trying to make sure that their game can work on as many machines as possible, so people playing on high-end rigs end up with weapons that are lackluster. I spent hours installing a bunch of weapon retexture mods for Fallout New Vegas when I started playing New Vegas again, and I recently did the same for Fallout 4. With this video, I'm going to show you some of my favorite weapon retexture mods. I tend to choose mods that are as lore-friendly as possible. Some of these retextures do have brand names on them that I don't know would fit in the Fallout world, but they're all realistic, they're exceptionally well done, and they make using weapons in the game so much more fun. So take a tour with me, ladies and gentlemen. This video is going to be mainly eye candy. We're going to see a lot of wonderful, beautiful weapons, and I'll hop into comment when appropriate. This is Oxhorn's Mod Muster. First on the list is the Delightful Deliverer by DPLR. The Deliverer, which we find in the switchboard, has more retextures out there than almost any weapon. It's an extremely popular weapon to retexture, and the retextures are amazing. This one by DPLR is absolutely stellar. He included WALTHER engravings on the side, model PPK caliber 9mm. This is what the Deliverer was modeled after in the real world. Now let's say that you're wanting something a little bit more fancy, maybe something that's got a bit of a Western feel. You may like Deliverer Custom Engraved Retexture by ArcLab. This makes the gun silver and gives it a beautiful floral weave. I'm not terribly fond of the Vault-Tec logo on the silencer, but you could always install a silencer retexture from another mod to overwrite it if you want. I really like the text on here, and the mod author put 10mm on here because in the game it's a 10mm weapon, even though the real-life equivalent is a 9mm. Maybe you want something that looks a little more battle-worn. You may like Deliverer WALTHER PPK Retexture by Stealthy Cactus. This includes the text on the side of the gun, but makes the weapon scuffed up like it's been well-loved. Maybe you want the exact opposite. Maybe you want a clean, never-used weapon. You may like Deliverer Clean PPK Texture by Primary Insomnia. This also adds the markings to the side, but the gun looks pristine, like it's never fired a shot. The markings on the side also say 10mm, keeping with the lore of the game. Next up is the Top-Notch Tommy Gun by DPLR. This retexture makes the wood look more realistic and adds a whole lot of detail to the metal. He includes many high-resolution scratches and engravings, including a list of patents that all have realistic dates. Next up is the Humble Hunting Rifle by DPLR. This is a wonderful high-resolution texture that adds Remington markings to the weapon, which is the gun that Bethesda based their hunting rifle off of. This is the Marksman stock, but he's also retextured the full stock with beautiful woodwork here, and he retextured the scope to make it match the look of the gun. He also included a bunch of wonderful markings. Let's say you like the full stock but you don't like the tape on it. You may want to try Tapeless Hunting Rifle Stock by RECON. This simply removes the tape from the stock. A nice touch for people who might be bothered by it. Next up is the MERITABLE Minigun by DPLR. This is a beautiful high-resolution retexture of the minigun with a bunch of new warning labels and markings. Another one to consider is FALCONOIL'S Minigun HD Retexture. I'm showing off the 4K version here. This retexture comes in a number of different colors, black and even hot pink. I'm showing you the default color here. It adds a whole lot of texture, rust and grime, and even a few labels. Next up is the fancy FATMAN by DPolari. DPolari wanted to make the FATMAN in Fallout 4 look more like the FATMAN in Fallout 3. He gave the weapon a high-resolution texture and redid all of the labels, making them legible and even adding new markings to the mini-nuke itself. Now, there were some mods for the FATMAN that Bethesda cut from the game. There are some mods that you can install to revive these mods, including a tracking computer, and DPolari's Retexture mod works with that cut content. It also includes a Vault Boy drawn on the side. Not sure how that would have gotten there. Next up is the Pristine Cryolator by DPolari. DPolari thought, well, the Cryolator has been inside a locked case for over 200 years. It's never been used. Why then is it scuffed and worn when we get it? Great question, DPolari. He retextured the thing to look brand new. He also found inspiration from the concept art, adding many of the labels he found there and changing the look of the loaded ammunition from energy cells to cryo cells.
What?
Let's do this. Better not try that again.
Next up is the Lavish Laser Musket by DPolari. This mod makes the wood stock darker, a little less worn, removes much of the rust from the metal, and adds a bunch of markings, including a Minuteman marking. Since these weapons are scratch-built by the Minutemen, it makes sense that we would find a Minuteman stamp on the metal. He even added numbers to one of the hanging wires coming down from the weapon. Another great alternative is the Laser Musket Retexture by Alex Scorpion. Instead of going with a darker wood, this stock looks much more realistic, scratched, scraped, and worn. He scraped a lot of the brown rust off the metal, but the metal still looks dingy. It's a wonderful high-resolution reinterpretation. Next up is Better Reflective Pipe Weapons by Billy Rowe. This mod changes the metal to be a little bit more shiny. It scrapes off all of that orangish brown rust so that all of the metal looks like tin or aluminum. Of course, this works on all pipe weapons. I'm going to show off both rifles and pistols here, but the one mod works on them all. I found that it also makes the wood look a little bit more gray. If you'd like the look of the wood to be more brown, you can always install brown to gray pipe weapons by Mertalizer. This is an alternative mod that does many of the same things as Billy Rowe's, but it also comes with an optional file that makes the wood look less gray. Next up, there's SCRATCHMADE New Combat Shotgun and Rifle by Millennia. This is one of my favorites of the bunch. It's just so well done. We don't find a whole lot of markings. Just every inch, every nook and cranny is exquisite and extremely realistic. I love how the wood changes color, greasy in the corners and lighter where hands gripped it. A lot of attention to detail went into this retexture. Thank you very much, Millennia. Then there's the Assault Rifle Retexture AR-51 by Devious Methods. This gun probably needed a retexture more than any. The assault rifle texture in the base game, well, I mean, it's just bad. There's no getting around it. It just doesn't look very good. This retexture fixes many of the problems I've found with it, making the gun look more realistic, like it fits in with the world better. He includes a bunch of wonderful markings, some of which have been stamped into the gun, some which have been drawn on with marker. Next up is the SCRATCHMADE new double-barrel shotgun by Millennia. This is another wonderful high-resolution texture. It makes the wood stock look like it's 200 years old. The barrels are less shiny. It looks like a shotgun you'd find lying in some abandoned shed. Maybe old and rusty isn't your thing, maybe you want something a little bit more fancy. You may want to try Double Barrel Shotgun Antique Retexture by Raffletas. This gives the double barrel shotgun a more old western feel, with antique silver metalwork. It also includes blood splatter. We'll find blood on the stock and on many of the worked designs. Next is the GAUSS rifle retexture by Alex Scorpion. The GAUSS rifle, in my opinion, is one of the better looking weapons in the game, but there's always room for improvement. I love Alex Scorpion's retexture because it adds a bunch of wonderful scratches to the casing, and it makes it look like the weapon hasn't been cleaned in decades. Another great alternative is the WATZZ Electronics GAUSS rifle prototype by Dicker. This one re-envisions the GAUSS rifle as being invented by the WATZZ Electronics company. It emblazons the weapon with WATZZ Electronics logos and gives it a new color scheme. It also adds a bunch of new decals and new text onto the clips. Next up is high-quality black rifle recon scope by Dirty Alien. I've always thought the recon scope in the game was ugly. This mod gives it a beautiful high-resolution retexture. I'm showing you both sides here. I'm not terribly fond of the skull and crossbones on one side, but almost everything else about it is wonderful. It even has cracks on the glass. They don't interfere with aiming the thing, but it does make it look well-loved. Next up is the Radical Ripper by D. Polari. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but the Ripper in the game has a chainsaw or a bicycle chain on it without any teeth. This mod fixes it so that the chain actually has teeth on it. He also redid many of the stamps and decals, making them look much more realistic, and improved the quality of the texture overall, making it look much more distressed. Next up is the boxing glove retexture Reno by Morgan Riggs. This revitalizes the color of the boxing glove. It comes in a variety of colors, I'm showing you the red one here, but the thing I like best is the big Reno stamp right on the glove. This, of course, is a reference to the new Reno Championship boxing tournament from Fallout 2. And last on the list today is the fantastic 44 by D. Polari, and it is indeed fantastic. He texturized the grip and added a whole bunch of Smith & Wesson markings. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I know it seems like a shorter video today, but this took me a lot longer to put together than I expected it would. But I had so much fun putting it together, and I hope you enjoyed the tour. These are some of my favorite retextures. I use most of these in my game, and many of these modders are continuing to come out with wonderful textures for Fallout 4. I included links to all of these mods in the description below. I publish a new Fallout video 6 days a week, so if you want to make sure that you don't miss what I publish tomorrow, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. And did you know that I've got a t-shirt shop? That's right, ladies and gentlemen, I've got a shirt shop selling Oxhorn and Fallout themed shirts. You can find a link to my shop in the description below. And if you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. Patreon subscribers gain access to a private channel on my Discord server, as well as a bunch of other cool Oxhorn perks. But more than anything, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early, with a brand new video.